Just finishing up the second final of the weekend. Scott Mackerel's just come in. I'm going to try and grab a quick word with him live. When he takes his helmet off, he's dominated the two senior ROK races, I have to say, so far this weekend. And we're just going to get a quick chat with you, Scott. You've dominated the first two finals this weekend. Just looking at you there compared to some other drivers' lines, obviously you've got a lot of experience just coming through the boot here. Smooth is obviously the way. How are you finding the ROK?
It's quite good. The tyres look after you. It tends to be, I'm finding that the more effort I put through the car, the tyres don't work.
Yeah, funny enough you say that. I was just saying that to my cameraman here. With people really pushing the karts, they're sort of sliding around, they're not getting the best out of it. You were definitely much smoother through the corner, and obviously two dominating wins so far. Hopefully, we're going to be filming the last final of the weekend. It'll carry on for you. Can you take this championship home? I know Matthew Collins and Christian here behind you should push you all the way, but you'll be hoping to go to the international finals in Italy or the Las Vegas event, I guess.
Hopefully both. That's what we're pushing for, isn't it?
Okay, well, good luck.
Cheers, man.
Scott Mackerel going off the front row of the grid, but pole sitter is Matthew Collins, Joe Weaver and JJ Cook on the second row from Tom Day and Jason Bradbury, Christian Briley, Matteo Palmer and Bradley Parrott round out the field. It's only the beginning of a very interesting new era for Super 1. Let's rock! Down to the chicane for the first time. They're going to charge through beyond the chicane on the first lap, through it on lap 2, but it's Scott Mackerel who takes the early advantage from Matthew Collins. Well, obviously it's the commentator's praise rather than the commentator's curse. We talked to him before the race and now he's off and away as they go through the first chicane, and it is Scott Mackerel leading by example. A big twitch there from Tom Day as he has moved himself up into 4th position, and that is Jason Bradbury who has come up into P5. Good start from Bradbury. He's one of the top talents from the Birillard series, now known as Daniel Ricciardo series, but he saw the opportunity to come into Senior ROK in 2019 and said, yeah, I fancy a bit of this. And he's been one of the prolific testers of the category since the announcement back in January, and he is already right up there at the sharp end. So Scott Mackerel leading the way from Matthew Collins. And it's looking good for the two Kart Republic chassis up front. Whoops, that's a little bit more than the racetrack from Palmer, as up the inside goes JJ Cook and gets through on Bradley Parrott. But yeah, that was a bit of a problem for Matteo Palmer. He found a little bit more grass than racetrack on the way down to the hairpin. So they come through, and it's Mackerel and Collins on the two Kart Republic chassis. That brand has got so big so quickly, and it's amazing what Dino Chiesa has done with that particular brand, having been previously involved with the Zanardi brand, of course, and going on his own way. They won the World Championship last year, of course, with Lorenzo Travasanuto and the Rosberg Racing Academy, which is much bigger for this year. And another former Super 1 champion is now involved in that team, of course, Taylor Barnard, and he's going to be a big player in Europe in 2019, but it all started here in Super 1. So they come back once again. Collins chasing after Mackerel. Scott Mackerel running very well. Just watch them fly through. They're 2 wheels off the deck as they go through that curve into the chicane. It's a glorious bit of no-nonsense, at-the-limit racing as Mackerel continues in front of the 74 of Collins.
Mackerel's been absolutely dominant this weekend, Jake. It's been quite remarkable. He had a bit of a problem in the pre-final, had to come through from the back. Had a problem at the start, ended up dropping back at the start and had to come through the second, which he did. But he is absolutely on fire against Matthew Collins, who I was watching up at Raura for the IKR meeting last weekend. He was on fire. He won all the heats by an absolute stretch. He didn't win the final because he used different tyres to the drivers that came along, being IKR. They were allowed to use different tyres. That won't be the case next weekend, where we're up at Raura for another IKR event, so you have to use the standard tyres. But Collins was on fire there, winning comfortably in that was a senior Rotax category that day. But he's really getting on with this kart, and he's somebody that should be challenging. I would expect Mackerel, Collins, maybe the likes of Christian Briley as well. And it looks like Christian Briley hasn't started, Jake, so we've lost Briley, and that's a bit of a surprise to me, and will hurt his championship hopes, because he certainly will have come into this hoping to challenge for the championship. But I have to say, Scott Mackerel, they're on the 16 again in this race here. Matthew Collins just not quite at the races with him, just can't quite seem to close him down. That's going to be really frustrating as we get a look at Joe Weaver, the Moders Motorsport man.
Yes, indeed, and this third place battle is where it's at, essentially. Joe Weaver trying to get away from the 65 of Tom Day, but there's a lot of pressure there as well from the likes of JJ Cook and Jason Bradbury. JJ Cook having slipped back to 6th position initially. He's now trying to make a push for Jason Bradbury. Then behind that lot is Bradley Parrott and Matteo Palmer. Here's Jason Bradbury trying to hang on in front of JJ Cook. This is an interesting battle between these two.
Yeah, you're saying that he's one of the front runners in the Birrell series, Jake, and here's Jason Bradbury. I think he's been having a few issues this weekend, setup issues with the engine. He's not had much test time, but he's a driver, as we were talking earlier, about Collins and Christian Briley potentially bringing the battle to Scott Mackerel. Jason Bradbury on his day, definitely, once he gets to grips with the equipment and he has more time in the kart, he's another driver who could certainly take wins this year.
Yeah, I've been watching Jason for the last 2 seasons at various tracks around the UK. He does go well here at Fulbeck. He seems to have a good flow for it, but you're right, this is not quite the pace he would have wanted as JJ Cook absolutely banzais into the braking zone and gets him. Bradbury decides to fall in behind rather than go for a retaliation move. But JJ Cook up into P5, nice move there, but Bradbury, yeah, this isn't quite the pace he wanted from this weekend, so hopefully when the ROK category comes back at Rowra at the end of May, there are 2 meetings for Super 1 at Rowra up in Cumbria in May, the first of which is for Bambinos, Hondas and TKMs. It's the first Bambino meeting of the season for Super 1 series actually, so Bambino dads and mums, that's where you want to be. And for Rowra, the second time of asking, that's for Iami, Rotax and the ROK.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning as well that the Rotax category, as I understand it at the moment, we've got around 25, I think, in seniors, around 20 for juniors. So, you know, it's difficult when you're setting up a championship. Obviously, it's independent for the first time. Difficult to know what to do for the best in terms of what classes come to which rounds. If we'd have had the Bambinos and the Rotax here this weekend, we'd have ended up with something like 150, say. It's a big meeting. But let's say TKM Extreme had a grid of 30 or 40. We'd have ended up with a disaster because we'd have had literally too many. You could have, you know, so John Hall can't win really. So this year will be a good indicator of the numbers. I do believe in the ROK categories, this one included. I think we're going to see 20 or so in this for next year. So 27 makes a nice move. That's JJ Cook putting a move on the 65 of Tom Day, making up a place. Those two now line astern, and he's going to be getting after Joe Weaver. It will be interesting, I think, looking at these classes next year. Mini ROK we'll see later on. We've got 16 here this weekend. There's a few couldn't make it. Others that have bought the engines couldn't make this weekend. But I think that class particularly will grow this year. But I think all 3 of them, the championship, of course, finishes in August, so it's fairly early finish. So, as we see Joe Weaver there clipping the curb, that could have gone all sorts of pear-shaped, but fortunately he's held on to it. He's now coming under pressure from the 27 of JJ Cook, and he's going to be all over the back of him sometime very soon. I think as the year goes on, with the more testing time that we'll get, particularly after the championship finishes in August, I think by the time we get to next year, I think Mini ROK, we're going to see something like 40 or 50 of them next year. I literally mean that. Just judging, I mean, Aidan Hassan, for example, this weekend has bought an engine and is already doing the Gold Cup next weekend. He'll do that out of the box, that engine, and these engines are winning out of the box, and that's quite interesting in itself. But I think next year, John will have a much better idea in terms of the numbers in the ROK classes, and then supplementing that with the Honda, Iami and the Rotax classes as well, particularly. I think we'll end up with meetings that are in the 140, 150 or so.
Yeah, the thing you've got to realise about the ROK category, I've been watching it steadily the last 3 or 4 years, the ROK brand with Vortex engines, of course, and you've got to remember that ROK is to karting what TCR is to touring car and circuit racing. You know, the first year of a TCR championship is always thin on the ground for numbers, but it picks up because everybody wants to buy into it. It's affordable, it's good to run, it's a good balanced championship, and it does provide the action. The British Championship last year had its first go in TCR. This year the numbers are bigger and better. Same on the the European, same on the world stage. Now it's the official World Championship for touring cars. That's what ROK is aiming for. That's what they're pushing towards, and this is going to be the pinnacle of British karting. As far as ROK is concerned, JJ Cook does exactly the same move on Joe Weaver as he did on Tom Day, as he did on Jason Bradbury, but this time Joe Weaver wants a piece of him back, and JJ Cook slams the door in his face. He's gone up from 6th to 3rd in the space of 4 laps, and his overtaking point has always been exactly the same place, that first hairpin at turn 4. Really good work from JJ Cook as he's worked his way forward. A really good bit of battling. And of course, you've got to remember as well that there is an incentive for a lot of the drivers from last year. You'll probably see quite a few of them dipping their toe into the Super 1 category in one of the ROK classes again this year, because at the Super 1 series back in January, all of the drivers in the top 3 from last year's championships in pretty much every class bar Bambino were given a ticket to the ROK the Rio in Las Vegas or the international final at Sarno. So that is absolutely incredible to basically see, you know, that's how serious ROK are about having the British involvement. They want the top British drivers, they want them to come through this class. Super 1 was the chosen championship because they know their history. They know the last 36 seasons of motor racing, they've seen the big names come through, the Hamiltons, the Buttons, the Coulthards, the Frankittis, the Weldons, the Norrises, the Russells. You know, you can't ignore that history. These drivers have come through Super 1 for a reason, and ROK is totally on board with that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this category, we've not had the ROK engines in the UK before. This is the first season, of course. So this is a relatively small grid here today. But again, we've got more drivers that bought the engines couldn't make this weekend. But this class of racing with these ROK engines is huge internationally. It's just that they've never ever been here. I remember going out doing some circuit commentary. That's right, Jake, you heard it here. I did some circuit commentary once out in Italy for the ROK finals out there, and it was amazing. The grids were absolutely huge, and you know, you'll end up racing in Las Vegas against some, and then the international finals against maybe 400, 450 drivers. This engine category is absolutely massive, and I'm absolutely convinced by this time next year we'll have a grid across the 3 ROK classes of 80 to 90, and that's excluding the fact that you've got the 177 category as well. There is a heavyweight category. We've been asked about that in the last week or so. Whether that will get enough drivers to become part of it, we don't know, but you know, even as we see here with 7 or 8 drivers in it, it can be competitive, although Scott Mackerel, with exactly 1 minute on the clock as he goes across the line this time, he's trying his best to make it uncompetitive, Jake, because he is absolutely on fire this weekend.
You've got to look at his pace over the course of the last few races. I mean, you said he had difficulties coming through the field from the previous race. He's still set the fastest lap on his bid to get there with a 43.918. Had he got a clear bit of traffic, he probably could have got his way easily into the 43.6s, the 43.7s, but he's on a fast lap here of a 43.954. Interestingly, Matthew Collings has actually gone a little bit quicker than that, so he's slightly faster than Scott Mackerel, but it's over the course of 1 lap. It's not over the course of the full race distance, and as they come through, they are going to go into the penultimate lap now. 43-second laps roughly for the drivers here, on an average speed around this circuit of 47 miles an hour. That doesn't sound like much to the layman, but you've got to remember that these karts are a couple of millimetres off the ground. You're not strapped in, you don't have a roll cage, you are absolutely at the limit, and of course that includes those smaller hairpins as well, which gives you an idea of just how fast these karts can be when you push in, particularly through this left-hander. It's not the fastest corner on the circuit, but it's definitely one of them as they push it absolutely to the limit. You've got to remember that karts, when they're at their limit and they are pushing them through some of the faster corners, the drivers can experience up to 2G.
Yeah, I was talking to the race leader here, Scott Mackerel, earlier, of course, and I was talking to him about the way to drive these karts. There's no doubt, if you watch Scott's driving style, he's very smooth. I was watching them in the earlier final coming through the boot, and Scott was really smooth, and there were other drivers here that were just dragging them around a little bit, you know, drivers with less experience, and it was effectively, they were trying too hard effectively, and that's what Scott said. You know, smoother you are, the better the kart is, the quicker it goes with the tyres.
Well, Scott Mackerel has made light work of the field this time. They're going to have to wait until Rauer to challenge him again. Out of the final turn, the checkered flag flies, and Scott Mackerel absolutely disintegrates the opposition around him. Matthew Collings in second place. A feisty fight-back drive from JJ Cook to bag the final step of the podium in front of Joe Weaver, Tom Day and Jason Bradbury, who's not quite had the pace he wanted from this race. But we'll see about in force again, no doubt next time. Bradley Parrott and Matteo Palmer both finish up the race. A little bit disappointing. We didn't get to see what Christian Briley really could have done from his position on the grid. But no doubt we'll see him in action at Rauer.
Scott, it was a pretty dominating performance this weekend, but you had a problem in the pre-final. You didn't start, so you've had to start that final last, but you've still come through and the quality's risen to the top at the end of the day.
We couldn't get it off the line in the pre-final today, so we've had to come from probably about 5 seconds back, drove through to put it on P2 to set off on the front row. Luckily it went this time, made it a lot easier actually setting off with everyone from the front row in the last one. So.
Okay, who do you want to thank for your win?
It's just my family, to be fair. That's the real support.
Okay, well done.
Cheers, man.
Smooth is clearly the way for the senior ROK karts. Scott Mackerel just 2 points off the maximum, has the championship lead going to round 2 from Matthew Collings, Tom Day, JJ Cook, and for Modus Motorsport, Joe Weaver rounding out the top 5. We're back for the second meeting of the season at Rauer in Cumbria, the fast-flowing circuit, an absolute favourite with the drivers. We'll see you then.